So, when you think of Demon Slayer, what comes to mind? I bet it's the incredible animation, right? The epic, breathtaking fights. But what if I told you the show is also asking one of the deepest questions out there? A question about salvation. Well, today we're going to dive into an analysis that explores exactly that. This right here, this is the central question that really drives almost every major story arc in the anime. And what's fascinating is, it's a question that's also been at the very heart of Christian theology for thousands of years. In a world where tragedy has already struck, what hope do we have for rescue?
To really get this, we've got to start with the world itself. You see, both Demon Slayer and Christian theology, they share this really surprising starting point. The world is already broken. Yeah, this is no paradise waiting for a fall. The story of Demon Slayer kicks off after the tragedy has already happened. Suffering isn't the exception, it's the default. The characters don't just, decide to be heroes. They're forced into that role by some kind of unbearable loss. And that really mirrors this theological idea of a fallen world, a broken reality that we're all just born into.
But right here, this is where we see the first major split. In the world of Demon Slayer, the job of saving this broken world, it falls completely on human shoulders. In Christian theology, that responsibility, that massive weight, rests with God. And that is a huge, fundamental difference in how they each approach the whole idea of salvation.
So that brings us to the nature of evil in the show. I mean, who, or maybe what, are the demons really?
And here's the thing that's so compelling. The demons are almost never just shown as pure evil. No, the story presents them as something way more tragic. They are former humans whose lives were just horrifically twisted by some awful tragedy.
I mean, just think about their backstories. So many of them were once victims of terrible abuse or starvation or just unbelievable violence. They made the choice to become a demon because they were terrified of dying or because they just completely lost all hope. It's actually not that far off from a theological idea of sin not being just a simple bad choice, but a state of being completely broken, totally disconnected from life. All right, so if humans are the ones doing the saving, and the demons are these tragic figures, how does salvation even work? Well, the answer is, it's really heartbreaking. There's this logic to it in the show, and it kind of follows 3 steps. First, our hero, Tanjiro. He always tries to understand the demon's original human pain. He sees the tragedy that created the monster he's fighting. But the final step, well, it's always the same. Their existence has to end.
And you see this so powerfully when Tanjiro weeps for the demons he slays. But these aren't tears of forgiveness. They're not offering a second chance. They're tears of compassion for a life that simply has to end. It's a sad, sad farewell.
So at the end of the day, the salvation that's offered in Demon Slayer is an act of termination. It's a merciful end, for sure, and it's full of empathy, but it's still an end. There's no rebirth here, no renewal.
And this is the point where the two worldviews just completely split apart. Let's take a look at how Christian theology answers the exact same problem of a broken world.
This table really lays it all out. On one hand, you have the Demon Slayers, who understand tragedy. But the Christian story is about a divine figure who actually enters into that tragedy. Tanjiro fights for the innocent, while Christ is said to die for the enemy, the very ones doing the harm. And that leads to the biggest difference of all. One path terminates the life of evil, while the other bears its consequences to transform it. One offers an end, and the other offers a rebirth. Tanjiro really is the best of us, right? He represents the absolute peak of human compassion in his world. He's this profoundly kind person who can hold a demon's hand and gently walk them to the end of their life. But that's his limit. Now, contrast that with the Christian claim, which is a power that goes beyond that limit. The idea isn't just about accompanying a soul to death, but accompanying it through death and out the other side into a new life. And that's the whole concept of resurrection.
So, you might be wondering, if the show's vision of salvation is so tragic and, limited, why do we love it so much? What makes it one of the biggest anime on the planet? Why does the story resonate so deeply with us?
Well, the analysis we're looking at argues that its power comes from its honesty. It doesn't give us any cheap or easy answers. It shows us a realistic picture of the limits of human kindness and strength in a world that just feels so overwhelmingly broken.
What Demon Slayer is basically doing is showing us the absolute best, most compassionate solution possible in a world that doesn't have any kind of divine intervention.
It's making the case that, in a world that's limited to just human strength, the kindest possible salvation is a sad farewell.
And that really hits on a modern feeling, doesn't it? The show forces us to ask ourselves, if a complete salvation, a real renewal, is what we truly want, can we actually get there by ourselves, with just our own strength and kindness?
And that's the perfect thought to end on. Demon Slayer isn't a sermon, but by being so honest about the limits of a human-led salvation, it awakens something deeper in us. It doesn't give us the final answer, but it definitely makes us feel the weight of the question, and makes us start longing for a hope that lies beyond a tragic final goodbye.